you guys on Wake Up Hex with KNTX. My sound isn't coming through. Awesome. That's why. Can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me now? There it is. All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, but shouldn't you like take down the microphone?
No, I don't use that one anymore. I have a different microphone.
Okay, all right.
But the problem is that my computer reverted back to all my audio devices. So that's what happens when you're paying attention to trying not to stream over and mess up the restream for the Australian guys, and then you don't do a mic check before you get started. So, hey guys, sorry about that.
I was scared for a minute. I thought you were talking to the microphone that's planted between your legs or something.
Oh my goodness. And he's gone. So hey guys, thank you guys for, I see so many of these people in here right now that were in the Aussies, and now they're here. This is awesome. So glad you guys came right over here. So yeah, I was trying not to cut the Aussies off. And like I said, I forgot to do a sound check on this end, and my computer re-defaulted to all the regular settings. SoundYard even updated. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but like when you test your audio now, it's got this little jingle, testing, sound testing through StreamYard. It gives you a little jiggy to listen to. So
I think that's awesome. Proof positive that you shouldn't quit your day job there. Yes.
Oh, all right. Fair
jingle,
enough.
Jingle.
Hey guys, it's good to see you all today. Thank you for joining me here, crypto pirates and crypto junkies alike. It's good to see you guys here joining us after such a long Aussie stream. It was such a good stream this morning. So I woke up this morning about 5, started listening to the Aussies. And fortunately, they were double streaming because one of the streams, we got an email saying they were taking it down because the thumbnail violated the sex and nudity community guidelines of YouTube. Too much cleavage, apparently. So
those were Sammy's wombats, weren't they?
I don't have any idea. I have no idea. I'm just gonna say, like, it's the first thing that went to my mind when I saw that is I said, "Oh God, is that?" The first thing I saw Gary is actually calling me Funding Jim. The first thing I saw was, or thought when I saw that email come through this morning at like 4:55 a.m. was, what did Unrec do? That was the first thing that went through my mind. Oh man, was it? It's got to be the Aussies, right? So, let me send Gary the stream. It looks like he wants to come on. That's what he was calling me. But I'm like, you can't call me while I'm on the stream.
Actually, I managed to double stream on Sunday. Somehow.
Did you? I saw that. I was messing with all the back end stuff, so I don't mess with any of the YouTube channel settings on the back end on the weekends. That's family time. And I saw that there were multiple streams, and I'm looking at it here, and I can't figure out. I think someone finally got it turned off because it doesn't look like it's on there now. So it looks like the Aussies might have turned it off. But they had, in StreamYard, they had selected the YouTube. And then in Restream, they had selected the YouTube as well. So what that does is it double streams. You have access to the Restream too, right, Peter Dennis?
Didn't Richard tell us how in SciVive, doesn't Richard tell us how to avoid double streaming in the morning?
Oh my God. I don't even know why. Why? Are you going to talk about security? That's the only time you get to come up.
Yes, and look at my beautiful background. Look, I'm hazing out for some reason. This is awesome.
You got a
quality
chroma key over
quality.
there.
I just wanted to wear green for once today, guys. Feeling a little bit luck of the Irish wanted to wear a bit of green, and then it screws it up.
I was doing
green overall.
We were doing a home inspection yesterday for a new home that I'm buying my wife the dream home, and so we were doing. It gave me a chance while he was crawling under the house and in the attic and everything yesterday to sit back and listen to the Eric Wall and the Dev Kyle chat. And
what'd you think?
I've never seen someone be so smart and well informed about blockchains, and yet so dumb when it comes to how markets and reality works. I don't understand how. So every downside that he spoke against Pulse and Hex are exactly the same arguments you can give to Ethereum and Bitcoin. It's like you can't say one of those is better than the other when they have the same downside, or any blockchain. Exactly right, Peter. So you're gonna so we're not coming up. Pulse isn't coming up with the new technological solution for the trilemma that the blockchains have. So what? It's coming out with an enterprise product that allows these S-load functions, these real business logic smart contracts to be able to function. And I wish Dev Kyle would have focused more on that it's not in contention or replacement of Ethereum, but it's an environment where these smart contracts can operate, and then you can settle on the other layer one. So you go layer one to layer one, and he did touch on that a little bit, but I wish you would have tried to make that clear to Eric, but I'm not sure Eric would have got it. That it's a totally different environment that allows for enterprise smart contracts to run business logic at an affordable price and at a much faster speed, and then be able to settle on the Ethereum blockchain without the MEV, the miner extracted value, costing you so much extra in GUI because of all the other bloat that people are arbitraging with.
Don't forget arbitrary tipping that's not even defined, that increases it by an order of 2. You have to double it, and then the miners are now supposed to take what they want and leave whatever they don't want, which is ridiculous.
Yep.
So
absolutely. So I think he's very wrong on a lot of points as far as and I see where he's going, because he's coming at it from a very academic blockchain stance. But go ahead, Peter. You have something to say. Don't let me talk over you.
Let's not forget that Eric is a middleman. He manages a hedge fund. So you give to him money for
that
underperformed
ETH and Bitcoin price action in 2021 or 2020.
Yes.
So keep that in mind, guys. In 2021,
that too.
His hedge fund underperformed the two big cryptos and their price action. Just keep that in mind. Just throwing that out there. What's up, Gary?
Hey, Gary.
Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Gary.
I'm working the hours. I'm in Japan with Papa Boner a couple hours ago, and then back on again.
Yeah, man.
What kind of transportation do you use?
It's the fastest transaction available.
He's got a kayak. He's got a speedboat kayak.
I have a phenomenal Expedia account. That's what does it.
There you go. There you go.
I don't know what you started out the topic with. Did anybody watch RG3's stream right before yours just now? Did anybody?
Yeah, I've been watching it.
I listened to it.
I've been watching it all morning, and I think he's got a great point. I think Blue Bum is right that the governments can't stop crypto, so that's why I put that in the title. Can the government stop crypto? No, it can't stop the code. But you guys got to understand, you can't buy goods and services with a registered business that is registered to do business in their jurisdiction if the government says, sorry, you cannot be a registered business with us any longer if you're taking crypto, unless you create a black market. So I think in the short term, RG is very much correct.
So my perspective kind of feeds what Papa was talking about last night with whales. It's kind of the same thing. I don't want to say that there's a hard line of separation, but you're either in two camps. One camp is cypherpunk, anti-government. We will create our own currency. We will end up being peer-to-peer cash. That narrative is 11 or 12 years old. And it is about anonymity, screen names, and this is how you're going to transact business on the internet, right? This is where the rise of Silk Road and dark web and things like that, as far as a currency system to pay for things. That is what happens throughout all of history, thousands and thousands of years. If there is an onerous government, if there is a feudal lord, if there is something along those lines that will effectively tax you or take some percentage of your crop, then you go underground. That's what happens, right?
Yep.
But I think we're kind of at a tipping point. And the tipping point to me is, you know, it's very easy to put fear into 80% of the bell curve of the population by saying these nefarious people, these people that have no name, their screen name, Fluffy Pony, their screen name, whatever the number and name is, that discredits the idea behind the screen name, the person behind it. You know, it's the anonymous thing. A lot of people liked the idea of anonymous, but a lot of people thought they were a group of hackers that were just causing chaos and damaging the middle class somehow, right? So I think we're kind of at a tipping point, and that tipping point to me is what Papa was saying too last night. Is you can go the route that says, yes, it's onerous, yes, it's stressful. I have to have professionals that pour over 1,000 pages of IRS documentation on what to do to file my taxes. This is how I declare the assets that I have that are crypto. These are the other assets that I deal in. This is my 30 years of labor that's sequestered into a 401k and a pension plan, right? These things appeal to the majority under the bell curve because that's what they're familiar with and what they know. And if you represent, I was just reading this thing right before this stream, how to basically build a brand is the same as building a cult, honestly. All of the same tools, because you don't want to appear as the loner, the outsider, the non-named, the unknown. You want to truthfully be part of that community and say, here's a different way, here's a different path. And what RG3, at least the last few minutes of what I was catching, was a little bit of, you know, do you participate by outing yourself and going to Congress, going and saying to my representative, this is what I do. This is the business that I run. It has nothing to do with crypto. I happen to be a real estate person. I'm an ex-Special Forces military guy. I'm an ex-cardiology guy. I'm someone, I ran startup accelerators. I'm someone that can be heard, right? I may not be valued and weighted as the same as others, but I can be heard, right? And when you have economic mass, whether it's in the form of crypto or other asset class or things that you are paying taxes on, you have representation to some degree, right? And that's really the tipping point. You can see this play out in a lot of different Silicon Valley companies over and over, where the first resistance is from, I've said this before, the hotel industry doesn't like Airbnb taking part of their market share. So they don't want you to be able to have your private residence that's behind the hotel rentable for, you know, 2/3 of the cost of their room and their overhead. When you don't want to rent out your Airbnb, you don't have overhead because it's probably your own personal home. They do. They have their own employees and staff and insurance and all the things, even if they have complete shutdown. So when COVID happened this past year, the hotel industry suffered a lot, right? Yep. But what did they get? They get subsidized to some degree because they have the political ear, because they've been paying taxes in for so long. Every time you go to any regular hotel, you're paying 12% occupancy tax plus all the regular taxes. So it's the same thing. They push back against Airbnb and they say, no, not in my town. It's not going to happen in Austin. No, not in my town. It's not going to happen in Malibu. It's not going to happen in Santa Monica, right? And those local decision makers make those decisions based on the economics and their ability to raise money. He even commented, RG3 said, the people that win the elections are the ones that get 98% of the time are the best funded, right?
Yep.
Well, it's not just the.
Why do you think they measure political or presidential races and how many dollars spent on advertising?
Yeah, you can have political noise, and you can have pink-haired people that protest, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're anything to the politician other than the pleb, right? They're just the pleb that's making a lot of noise. It does not mean that that's what's going to get them in office. It's not the person that's basically going to fund them. And I'm not saying that everything is corrupt, but that's basically the way the world has always worked. It's always worked that people that either have control of asset, whether it's I have an army and I'm going to take this asset and hold it by force, or I'm going to have some other structure of government that's enforced by quote unquote laws, and everybody's uniform under the law. We're just going to make it so convoluted and difficult, just like the IRS code, that our professionals can decipher it and you can't as a common man. So all my point is it's kind of a tipping point. Are you going to be outed? Yes. Okay. Peter Thiel has, Vitalik Buterin has, Michael Saylor has, Richard Hart has. Okay, fine. The billionaires can be out. They can say, here I am, throw your arrows at me. But the middle class has to do that. It's not just the few iconic people that say, I'm a Winklevoss. And by the way, I hold 1% of all the Bitcoin or whatever, right? Tim Draper says this all the time. When you have economic mass, and Tim Draper before Bitcoin was multi-billionaire, his family's VC, his father was a VC, since the 1950s. The people that funded the transistor and the magnetic reel tape and stuff like that were his family line. So he's been a long-standing icon, bringing economic energy and affluence to Palo Alto and Silicon Valley for a long time. And he's been a Bitcoin advocate or cryptocurrency advocate for Bitcoin primarily for 8-9 years, something along those lines. His son Adam is even more so into all of the alts and does all the research, and actually maybe as a percentage makes a higher ROI than his father does.
I'm almost certain of it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at is Tim Draper is not Fluffy Pony 1174 anonymous with no icon and shit, right?
Yeah,
he's not an unknown person. And I think that more of the middle class, even though it's the risk, when Wales says, don't participate in the system like he did the other night. He says, don't participate in the system. Just try to be crypto to crypto. It's going to be a 15-year war, 20-year war. Papa and I look at this and say, I'm too fucking old. I've fought a lot of different kinds of battles over my time. And now I have some assets and I have some audience and I have some, some influence among some powerful people and things like that. If I'm out, I'm leading by example. Richard leads by example. And I think more of us need to lead by example. That's my rant.
I agree with that. So, and Richard spoke to this to not ad nauseum, but he has spoken to this before, that you're going to lose some anonymity, but you're going to gain power and a following. And so it's worth giving up that anonymity to be a public face, to say, hey, we exist. We're not bots. Remember when we had this huge Twitter campaign where, hey, Hexagon, show your face and show everyone we're not bots. It's the same power in being public. So you don't have to give everyone your private information. You don't have to know that I live in Salt Lake City. You just have to know that, hey, I am a real person. I've got a real family, and I'm I'm an actual community member. So I think those things speak truth to power.
It's the same thing. A lot of us have been business leaders, or go through the stumbling blocks and fall down and fail businesses and succeed businesses, but we build networks. And it's funny that we have this separation. My family and my business associates and everybody that's non-crypto knows me. And in crypto, it's like screen name, fucking, brand, and, caution about whether I post my LinkedIn or not. It's stuff like that. It's like, why? I understand it because on a regular basis, at least daily, I have 15 or 20 people trying to hack my Instagram account on Funding Jim or my whatever. I get all these notices.
That's because everyone wants to be Funding Jim. Everyone wants to be Gary, man. Jet setting all over the world.
You ask for this 4-digit code to get into your Instagram again because you're locked out. And I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
to do that shit.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with brands like Discourse Syndicate. You guys are loud loudspeakers. No, what do they call that? Megaphones. You're megaphones for other people, right? You're megaphones for other representatives of a community, right? Yep. And so that network and that will become even more valuable, but it's something you got to secure. You got to be cautious about. You have to have a legal entity to protect. You need to be able to sue people. You need to have funds, when people are bad actors and things like that. You need to have that kind of stuff, just like, the business should. But I just, like I said, as far as myself, I'm going to be, once I launch this academy thing, that's first going to start in Miami and things like that, I've got to be more my name, myself, my brand, and just merge those two worlds. And I think that crypto will, especially Hex, as a representative of staking for 15 years, the community that we potentially can have versus any other thing that's fly by night and, pump and dump. And nobody knew that, 4 years ago, Sonny Decree was a BitConnect guy, right? And he's still Sonny Decree. You don't know him, but he's Sonny Decree. You have Ivan on tech, and he has regular companies, has to deal with people in blockchain and stuff like that. So he's more out about his name and brand. But most of these quote unquote influencers are bullshitters, and they are bullshitters because they can remain anonymous and they can be undeclared. And I just that's my biggest distrust, even in starting in representing Hex or representing other products, is like, I don't know if I'm the only one out there, but so many of us are out there. I think our community can really boom both politically and financially.
I agree 100% with that sentiment. In fact, I mean, we keep talking about it, Captain and I, but it really has come to the forefront of our personal conversations since this bill has reached the Senate. But there needs to be, and whether the anarcho-capitalists want to believe it or not, there needs to be a presence of PAC, a crypto PAC, so to speak. And there's money in PAC. And it's funny because the Aussies were talking about our system of government is whatever the American government tells us to do. And that's almost true. Their system of government is what the American lobbyists tell them to do, because the American lobbyists are the ones that dictate the American politics too. So we need to join that political party that is the lobbyist side of things. Unfortunately, it's the game that is played. And if you don't play the game, you can sit on your ideals and your high horse all day long, but you're not gonna create change unless it's in a black market situation, like I was talking about earlier.
Hey, KNTX, you didn't feel this time that we had lobbyists on our side? I did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know who's really great is Jake Chervinsky.
Absolutely.
That guy is amazing. There's no bigger Twitter advocate for. He's an attorney, and he's a pro sovereignty, pro sovereign money guy. Really is what he is. So he's very pro crypto, and I think some people ended up stepping in, like RG was talking about. There was a stay on this bill that was put in last minute. And when there's a stay, that means that a moneyed interest came in and said, no. Here's some more money to show that you guys are wrong, and we need to have a better discussion about this before you guys crush this. So
sorry for not being informed, but like, how did this end with?
May I?
It will be amended, or
no? May I? Okay, I'm going to give you a little role play, okay? Peter, this is the way it happens in the United States. After much deliberation and negotiation, the two factions, actually there were three parties, two parties of senators negotiated some good language that would have made it not suck so badly. And we were all behind it. And then, of course, we have our beautiful senator from the glorious state of Texas that also wanted to stand up, Ted Cruz, who wanted to stand up and say, fuck all this shit, take that out of there. So both options were good for us. Take all the crypto stuff out, strike it from the bill, and we'd be fine. Now they waited so long.
An infrastructure bill anyway. That's what I hate about.
That's true, and that's true. And okay, so the point is that they waited so long that they needed a unanimous consent on this bill to allow these amendments to be placed into the bill. Okay, unanimous means all the sitting senators in the room got to say yes, okay, or they got to not object. They put that to the room, and this one dude from the glorious state of Alabama stands up, 87-year-old guy, and he says, I object. Okay, so why do you object? Because I want to place in my $50 billion amendment into this bill for the military. If you'll do that, I'll retract my objection. What do you say? And the first guy says, yeah, sure. I'm cool with that. I'm a Republican. Yeah. You're a Republican. Let's do it. And then from the back of the room, Bernie Sanders stands up and he says, listen to me. You got to be fucking full of shit to take this fucking 50 billion when you should be taking that 50 billion and putting it into the government subsidies for all these wonderful things to make the environment green again. So I object to your objection, you motherfucker. And then that collapsed everything.
I think those were his exact words, by the way.
Okay. Exactly. So anyway, my brother from Vermont piped up and he quashed the objection on top of the objection, which splatted the entire thing. And the poor guy that had been negotiating for this blended, beautiful amendment said to everybody, just so everybody knows, this is some fucked up shit, okay? Don't blame me or my people or anybody for trying our best. But this guy just said something that pissed off that guy. And because of that happening, this cannot go forward. And then final possibility was the gentleman from Texas stands up and says, you see, I told you should strike it all from the bill. So now I'll put my option on the table. Can you please strike it from the bill? Okay, are there any objections to that? Same senator from Alabama stands up and says, well, I object again, and you got to put in my $50 billion for military. Will you do it? And the poor fucking guy from Texas stands up and he says, Ted Cruz is like, brother, I'll do my best to work with you, Republican to Republican. We'll take your fucking bill. We'll work together and we'll pass it together. Just don't fuck up the show. If I say yes, Bernie Sanders over there is going to object to your objection and it'll be squashed. If I say no, then your objection is going to stand. So I'm fucked either way. But what do you say we do this offline? We'll do it together. We'll get your $50 billion somehow paid for in the military. After all, you already got $750 billion. You want to make it $80 billion. So obviously everyone smells fish. Someone put you up to this. You're not going to be up for re-election this year. You're fucking old. You have nothing to lose by standing in the way of this bill being amended, right? Excellent. So I say, no, I will not allow you to add it. Well, then I keep my objection. And that was the end of that.
Yep.
Now it goes to the House. And it stands one last chance of being amended there. So letters have already gone to all the House of Representatives saying exactly what went down, why it's important, why it got squashed for this stupid reason. And please, do your best to advance some kind of amendment into the bill to unfuck this entire thing.
So I propose
Hexaco
become a real place. I propose Hexaco become a real place. Papa B and I have talked about this.
Hell
with
yeah.
Wales on the back end, that there's some small countries that are willing to take some bribes, and we're going to be some pretty wealthy mothers pretty soon. So we can probably just buy some land, our own island chain somewhere, and create a more fair government and system. So. Because I'm about done with America. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm so fed up with the way that business is done here. And it's so corrupt, and everybody knows it's corrupt, and but no one's willing to step up. And I like what Hexcoin 13 here says. One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And trust me, there's a lot of dumb people in power. There's a lot of people that don't know what the hell is going on, but they don't have to know because the lobbyists just put the bill on their desk and they do exactly what the lobbyists tell them. And these people who have never had anything, like Bernie Sanders, who have never had anything but a $30,000 a year municipal government job, all of a sudden comes out of Congress many years, 30 years later, a multimillionaire. Tell me how you made that off of $200,000 a year as a salary for Congress. Tell me how you are worth tens of millions of dollars. Okay.
So a lot of people don't know that Martha Stewart went to jail for inside trading. Some people do know that. There's other people that have high profile that have inside trading because a friend or someone else, to bribe or whatever, gives you that knowledge that a deal is about to happen, that some regulation has been passed, some patent has been approved, things like that, right? And that's considered inside trading because the free market or the public market doesn't learn at the same time that this thing might happen or will happen. It's determined will happen that will impact the price, the sentiment about the product or the service or the company or the launch or the property that's being sold or traded or whatever, right? That's inside trading, and you go to jail. The only exception to that is Congress. The only exception to that is Congress. And it's not even exception as in we have to be on this committee and we're going to make the decision. Is this a monopoly? Is this in the best interest of the public, 300 million people we represent? It's not even just that decision. Okay, we're going to have it behind closed doors and make this decision that impacts lots of people and the finance of this company or product or service. Congress is the only one that can actually buy and sell on knowledge that they get in advance. So
and not get in trouble. Yep.
Can be a multi-millionaire just by trading on inside information. They're accepted to that rule.
I wonder who made that exception. Oh wait, they write the rules. That's right.
Congress.
We've got the captain here with us. I thought I'd bring him on without leaving him in the green room too long.
I can bring myself on, but that's okay.
No, you can't, because I am the captain now.
Here's another thing. I love the brand. We all have an amazing brand. I have a good brand. RG3 has a great brand. KNTX has a great brand. All of us have great brands. I also love seeing the personal side, like RG3 without his cap and his, all the things he does to gear up. Richard doesn't come on camera unless he has his rings and his jewelry and his kind of persona displayed, right? I love seeing the whole depth of our representatives. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a different hat on and your regular.
Sig Hex wants to ask you, don't you have a real job?
I do. I'm on my lunch break. I'm the boss. So yeah, I get to do what I want. I'm actually working right now. But I love the conversation that we've been having the last couple of days because it gives us an opportunity. By the way, hello, Papa, Peter, and good to have you here, Gary. I was on with the Late Show this morning, and of course, I've always tried to keep politics out of our streams. I've always thought politics, sports, and religions are ridiculous things to even talk about or try to discuss amongst human beings when it comes to discourse, because it's very, very difficult to find common ground on things that people have ideologies on, and they are just that, they're ideologies. Everybody has their own myths, but when it comes to government and representational government and all those kinds of things, there are some facts involved. And the reason that I try and take politics out of it is because people don't understand politics. Most people don't understand how the U.S. government works. And Papa just explained some things that happened in the halls, in the room, that made things, change, made the legislation that was being brought to the table change and collapse and die and go away. All of those behaviors weren't personal behaviors of those gentlemen that created and destroyed that legislation at that moment. Those behaviors were all guided by dollars. Yep. And those dollars came from representative organizations that represent that mouthpiece, that power that did what they did. And it's about stacking money on top of money and making things happen. And that's what our government really is. And I keep trying to educate people about K Street and what that means. Because most people in the United States don't even know what K Street is, don't even know what lobbying is. They may have heard the word, but they don't understand that that's your representational government at work right there. That the industrial complexes, whether it be the military industrial complex, the oil industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, whatever you want to call it, those things are who are in control, not the human beings. They're the ones that sway public sentiment. They're the ones that use the internet to get you to fight with each other, that get you to really divide yourselves amongst each other and pick one side or the other. And then in all actuality, they're just making you pick their side or the other of their side. So all of this stuff that goes on because of the money that they've put to this thing is really just continuously taking away your liberties and continuously taking away your voice and continuously making it to where they have power and you don't. So until you can figure out how to get money out of politics or actually go in and use the money system, the lobby system for your own interest, then you have no representative government. You don't. And representative government is really a myth too. But you either play the game or you get played by the game. And a lot of people don't like hearing that, especially all you young guys with fire in your belly that want to go out and fight the government. I get it. I understand. I had that fire too. And somebody actually said in the chat room earlier on the other show, yeah, when you get old, you lose that fire and you just comply. Well, it's not about compliance. It's about an old guy taught me something. And it's a very, very simple song. And it goes, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. And a lot of times we've got our oars in our boat going the wrong way and we're trying to row upstream all the time. And when in all actuality, what you need to do is figure out how to go with the flow and how to change things with the flow versus going up against it all the time. Because what happens is you lose. Everybody who's ever done it has lost. All of them have lost. And real change has never been made by anybody who's gone up and, charged that hill, so to speak. And when it comes to government, when it comes to legislation, when it comes to human beings being moved, you have to figure out a way to move that.
Oh,
yeah.
You become the moneyed interest, guys.
and that's where
really?
And that's where it's moving is becoming the moneyed interest. And I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, and they don't. And I get it. I was always I am the I was doing this stuff a long time before all of you guys did. Believe you me, I've been fighting against governments and entities. My family, half of my family's Native American, and we've been fighting for 500 fucking years, against shit. And, just to keep our faith, just to keep our homes, just to keep our shit, we've been fighting. And I've watched what it's done to a lot of people, to all my brothers that are in AIM, to, different tribes that have had to deal with, the U.S. and its failed treaties. And going against things, they offer one thing, and then they end up switching it out and bait and switch on us, and we end up, hosed once again. I get it, man. I've been in all that shit.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where you've watched so many people bang their heads up against the wall. I was friends with Russell Means, and I watched what he had to go through, and what they did to him for being anti, and trying to fight the system, and. Look at Leonard Pelletier, all those guys. It's
Did row your boat. Now sing Wheels on the bus.
So we've got to figure out a way, and that's what's happening these days, is figuring out a way.
There is something to be said about starting a new party, because
the T-share party, I like it.
In the United States, we don't prosecute our political rivals. That's why Hillary Clinton is still out on the streets. So after all the messed up, crazy stuff that we have proven that her and her foundation have done. So that's why we don't do it. So there is some kind of safety in having a political party, but you got to play the game, the same game they play. And who's really good at this in the private sector is Robert Kiyosaki. He talks about, I don't pay any taxes, and I don't do it legally because I'm just playing the same game that the politicians have already created. Gary here, Funding Jim, doesn't pay federal income tax because he's playing the game correctly. There's ways to play the game, guys. And, some will charge that hill. And I just want to throw a word of caution to everyone out there that wants to charge the hill. Revolutions are never ended by the same people that started them. There's only one exception to that, and that was the American Revolution. You look back in all of our other revolutions in world history, and the people who start the revolutions have good intentions, and in many cases end up a dictatorship with the bad guy in charge. So you guys got to be careful about that.
And most of them get squashed. So.
Yep.
And it is
a dangerous job.
You have nothing to lose. When you feel like you have nothing to lose, you might, rattle.
Yep.
Desperation.
Yeah.
What's up, Wells?
Yeah.
Not much, man. Just hearing you guys basically cop out to reality. That's cool, though. You know what I mean? I'm here to change everybody's frame of mind, because the thing is that it's easy to just bow down.
No one said that.
Yes, because
that's not
here's the thing. You got to hear what I'm hearing.
Okay.
We can all play that game, and that's fine, right? We all know the game. That's not what we're talking about. We're at a different point in time. I think we're past that, and I think that's what a lot of people are just missing, because the game you're trying to play is about to end. It's no longer going to be available to you to play in the near term, and that's the big picture that everybody is just missing. I really don't know how else to relate it, But they already told you. They are not lying, and they always tell you what they're going to do ahead of time. I really don't know like how else to make this obvious to people. They literally told you, you will be happy and you will own nothing. I don't know what you think that means, but that shit's pretty freaking explicit to me. Just a warning for those thinking that the strategy that was just, or the strategies that were just, or the stories that were just relayed are sensible. I understand. I'm a student of history, just like the rest of us. But there comes a point in time where you have to realize that there has to be a little bit more done than just, you know, oh, this is how it goes. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard my whole life.
What is done? What is get done? What needs to get done? In your opinion?
People need to just stop submitting mentally. It's
okay,
all
so what
a
does
mental
that mean?
game.
What does that look like?
It means, okay, what does it look like? It looks like people actually not arguing and bickering, number one. People actually opening up their mind to information, number two. Because those are the biggest hurdles that we have. Because there's so much misinformation out there that people are willing to believe the misinformation because that's what they've been taught from day one. And that's a battle that I fought too. So it's not like I don't know. I know. I fully understand it. But there comes a point where you just have to come to terms with what the hell is going on. And what's going on is not right. And we're allowing it because we're just going to allow it? I don't know. I just can't agree with that notion.
But I want to know what the solution is.
The solution is education. The solution is education.
Okay, who do you get educated by? Who do you get educated by?
So step number one, we have to realize none of this information that we're talking about as far as education goes is centralized, right? Like we realize that the system is not designed to help us escape it, right? Like that's number one. So you can't sit here and pretend that you're going to get anything from any of these so-called authorities that help you. That's number two. So this whole notion of they're going to save us is fucking asinine. They're not here to do shit for you. They're not going to give you any tools or resources to help yourself. And you, RG, and your family have hundreds of years of learning that the hard way. So when are we going to realize what is really going on? We're just going to let ourselves be subjugated for fun? Because that's essentially what it becomes. This is what it's becoming.
But I hear what you're saying. So it's one thing to say, let's be woke. Let's not let them do this to us. But what do we do? Where does the education come from? Who are we supposed to listen to, follow, be part of in order to change things?
Everybody, bro. That's the whole thing. It's a cohesive effort, right? Because we all know different things. There are things, you know, RG, that I can't imagine because I'm not Native American or related to Native Americans. You understand? Just like there are things that I know and you can't imagine that I know because I'm a Black Hispanic person from the hood in the Caribbean. You got to understand, everybody brings a certain vantage point that adds value. And the sooner we realize that there is nobody to fucking look to, the better off we all are. Because we are the one. There is no one. The quicker we realize this as a fucking species, the better off we'll all be. This is the same thing as abundance, right? The notion of scarcity is false, and we know this. So why don't we operate from the point of abundance in all aspects? We don't do that.
So there's laws that we abide by in our governments. There's laws. We can walk around and act like those laws don't exist.
Who's talking about laws?
Well, that's what I'm saying is this is all about the law. This is all about the rule of law.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then. Since you want to talk about rule of law. How is it that the actual rule that matters is basically ignored and just made inferior by magic? Because if you go by the letter of the law, there is no paper that is superior to the Constitution, period. But yet we respect everything else as if the Constitution doesn't exist. So explain to me what letter of the law you are talking about exactly, because we don't follow it at fucking all. And we haven't in at least 150 years.
But Wales, there's an entire school of law that's dedicated to interpretation of that very brief set of laws.
Constitutional law, yes.
Yes. And as it was written like over 250 years ago or whatever it is, you got to wonder, isn't it like the 10 Commandments that you've got to constantly be growing and changing and applying it to the new paradigm? Yes.
I don't think so. You want to know
why? It was
why?
always written as a living document.
It's a universal, sure, but it's a universal document. And the fact of the matter is, it's not even treated as the most basic thing that it was. And that's problem number one. When you don't follow the basic shit, you don't get to throw shit on top of it. That's asinine. That's like thinking you can multiply when you can't even fucking add. What's wrong with people?
But see, eating shit and barking at the moon is one thing, but doing something about it is another thing. And that's what I'm trying to say is, what's the solution? What is the answer? What is it that human beings should be doing, in your opinion, to combat this, to change
without rhetoric, please? Can I have the answer without any rhetoric? Give me the exact thing to do.
Stop looking for centralized sources of information, as I've said a million times. We educate each other, as I've said a million times.
Okay,
everybody brings value.
Wales, that's a negative. Give me a positive thing to do.
That's a positive.
You're gonna get them. You say stop doing this. Don't do that. You should do this specific concrete action, and everything will be fine.
Okay, well, seek out those with information that you know you're not going to find elsewhere.
It's vague. I need to know. I need to know what is in the information to seek out. What is the law? What do you suggest and recommend? What do I do?
Law? I don't understand that question. Who's talking about law here? We're talking about finding sources of information. Okay, so here's a good plan of action. Go to hold on, let me find the site. I think it's webarchive.org. What happens there is that you find a lot of. Give me a second. I don't think that is the website. So it's like it's web.archive. Hold on. Yeah.
Web.archive?
Yep. Give me a second. It's like a nexus of the Wayback Machine, right? But you can find all kinds of things on there, not just old websites. You can find. Go ahead. I keep trying to talk over somebody. I wasn't watching. I'm sorry.
So I kind of hear the narrative, and the narrative that Wales speaks seems to be pre-1776 rebellion. Look, there's millions of colonists that don't like this. And the truth is the people that wrote the Constitution were like, 50 or 60 contributors. They represented the idea. They put it onto paper. They bickered and debated over what elements should go in and shouldn't go in. But millions of people did not. And millions of people didn't know why they felt pain, if they felt pain at all. They were living on their plot of land and giving some percentage of their tobacco to King George or whatever, right? So until you actually have pain in the masses, and right now we are all doped up like heroin addicts on fiat.
That's a good point.
You do not have the same stresses in the middle of our economy right now that says there needs to be blood in the streets to change things. So I understand kind of the revolution mentality that you're putting out there.
I just want to be clear. Nobody's calling for blood in the streets here. Just because I keep hearing people saying that shit. Because I'm not calling for that. Because that's not going to work, right?
No.
We already know that's not
going to work. I don't think you're calling for that, but I want to hear what it is. What is the call? Because, see, that's where the answers come from. And that is where it all comes from. We all have a call. We all can say, hey, I am 100% behind exactly what you're saying, because the education of our people is a necessity. And a lot of us are being educated by YouTube and Google, and that is not how you. What's funny is
RG, realize what that means, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. We've already gone from centralized sources of information to a notion of decentralized. It's just that people don't realize Google and YouTube really aren't decentralized. It's only a matter of time before that evolves again. And this is what people do not see. Nobody gives a fuck about school, man. Nobody gives a fuck about college. And that's something you have to realize. It's 2021. It's not 2000, right? A university holds no weight any longer. It's a different world. I went to college for no fucking reason, and I got a math degree. And I can make that claim. And it doesn't matter that I didn't go to Harvard. It doesn't matter, right? Because the fact of the matter is, this is one economy. It shouldn't matter that I went to Harvard. But that's how it works. So it's a whole big picture, and everybody likes to pick what piece of the pie they look at. I don't look at it like that. Everything is fucked up. That's a fact, not an opinion. Some people, hold on.
What I heard you espousing earlier was that you need to get information and decentralize and to gather from everyone instead of from one central, propaganda or truth engine, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
That does not work. That has never worked. Because you are basically getting the average of the collective knowledge. You're getting the average. You're getting the mean. You're getting the decision maker by the C students that are saying, let's make a rocket. And the C student rocket blows up, honestly. So I don't agree with that. Maybe you have a benevolent fucking source of knowledge and information that gets shared.
Yeah, I understand that. That's a valid point.
And you were ex-military. RG3 is ex-military. I'm ex-military.
Strongest as your weakest link. That's right.
Those are socialist systems. I spent 11 years in a socialist organization, which was the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. That was a socialist system. And then I change in my biases once I become a business person and earn wealth, right? We change from, I think we've heard this narrative before, that you start out as a socialist because you have nothing. And then later, if you accrue things, you're like, hey, I need to, be a conservative.
Keep this. Yeah. I need to keep all these fun things. Yeah.
And it's kind of that thing, right? So that's all I was trying to say earlier is you don't really have weight until you have name and brand and something at risk, whether it's blood, whether it's reputation, whether it's network, whether it's resources. You don't really have any say in the game. You don't. It seems like you're almost like the way that you were speaking last night and today is almost like we either need a bifurcation and we have two separate worlds, which was a crypto world, and you guys continue and die off as fiat world. So a bifurcation, or a complete renouncement and rejection of the fiat system. Don't participate in it. Always be peer-to-peer. If I want to buy real estate from Wales, he should transact with me in Hex, right? He shouldn't. But who is defending that contract? There might be code that says this is a smart contract, and now Gary has the title to the property that was sold by Wales to Gary for this transaction fee or cost of whatever the crypto is. But the enforcement is people with guns. The enforcement is, 2 million people right now are active duty in the United States service, and they are socialistly programmed to be a band of brothers. So they will do what they're told to do, basically, as long as it doesn't feel like it's against human rights or some, social norm.
To a certain extent.
Just like they had these people that were separatists in Texas or Arizona or wherever it was, standing their rights, right? Because I have the rights and the government doesn't have rights over the fact that my cattle have been grazing on public government land, right? That battle.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
It's the same kind of narrative. You're not saying that we all need to be more public. I'm saying that we need to be more public, and then we need to say truthfully, this is who I represent. This is the community I represent. This is what I've done for the community. This is the participation in blood and sweat I've sacrificed for my community over 30 or 40 years, and hear me roar. That's basically message.
I can't disagree with your last point because it's true. In one vein, you can't let people know things are wrong if they don't know that you're there to tell them, right? I also concretely value the notion that you're only as strong as your weakest link. And this is why the notion of scarcity is bad. Because the notion of scarcity is what creates that weak link. When you operate from abundance, what happens is that everybody is then pulled up. Rising tide lifts all boats. Doesn't mean that the weakest link is on your level, but it means that the weakest link isn't as weak as it was. And that's just as important as having the right person at the front, because when your rear is covered, you're more secure, right? Every time you get flanked or kicked in from the rear, that's when shit goes bad. And this I speak of from experience. And I'm pretty sure Gary can speak to this too. It's never what you see that gets you, it's what you don't see that gets you. And this is the whole notion of abundance and operating from that vantage point, and a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Like, this is what Eunice bias is all about, right? This is why so many Hexicans are so wealthy already after it only being 20 months. So it's all of these little nuances that are hard to see, but they really, really matter if we're trying to actually create change, because we know things aren't right. I mean, how do you go from something existing like 72 hours ago to 48 hours ago, nah, we're just going to entirely scrap it because we feel like it, and fuck what you guys have been doing for the past 12 years. Does that make sense? I mean, that seems viable. That seems like something we should just let continue. I don't think so. So this is where I agree with your point, where maybe we do need to get a little bit louder, a little bit more public. But again, education first, all that other shit after. Because if we don't know what we're talking about, it doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't matter that we're being loud. What are we saying? We're saying nothing if we're being loud and we don't know what we're talking about. And that's number one. People just like to be loud. Yeah. Not my thing. I like to know what the fuck I'm talking about. And that's the first thing that people need to like really focus on. Just wanting answers gets you nothing. You don't know what the fuck you want in the first place. You need to realize that your shit is fucked first and foremost. Come to terms with that and then figure out where it is you need to go. Because let me tell you, when I ran into this brick wall, I was trying to go into them 3-letter boys, into one of those agencies. And when I started doing my research is when I really started seeing what the hell was going on. And I was already a grown man, been through war and all this shit. You understand? So to have your spirit broken in that fashion is very disheartening. So you have to realize that my point of view isn't one of anger. It's one of we need to take action because we're being lied to on so many different levels. It's not even funny. We don't know what's next because we don't control shit. And that's my message. We won't control anything at all, not even our lives, if we don't start at least educating ourselves with our most basic human rights. And most people don't even know what the hell those are.
So I hear everything that you're saying, and I get it, and I have the same sentiment and feelings, and I understand my rights and my Bill of Rights and what that means. And I also understand the amendments and the things that have been put in place to change that living, breathing document, they call it. And it is that. It was meant to be a living, breathing document, which means that document can be amended and changed and moved around. And of course, we are all endowed with certain inalienable rights. However, we do need to understand on educating ourselves how the government or the world in which we live and function in operates. And that's what I try and teach people, is that, people have thought for the longest time that they have representational government, that they can go out and vote and have the person that they vote for. If more like-minded people like them voted for that person, then they got that person as representation based upon, who they were and how they did things. And that's obviously not true. The government itself, or we call them they all the time, have been usurped by moneyed interest. That's the reality. The reality is that there is no alien race. There is no Illuminati. There is no weird entity that's trying to control human beings. What it is a group of moneyed interests that are all vying for power and vying for their interests, and using money to do so. And they've manipulated the system to make the rule of money the rule of law. They have manipulated the system over the years. All the different things and laws that they've put in place has given them the ability, the people with money, the ability to make their money speech, to make their money create laws for you to obey and abide by. And it's frustrating to us as regular, normal, average, everyday working human beings that live in this country here to have to live under that. And to have lived under it and not even know that it's happening to us is the real hard part for a lot of people, because they don't understand their own government and how it functions and how it works. So understanding that is first and foremost. And once you do understand that, then people's minds can open up to how to change that. How can you change that? What's the easiest, least path of resistance to actually change that process, that function, that thing that has all got its boot on our neck, right? And I don't have the answer for that, but I think, in all of my years of existence and from watching this and following this and watching it happen to, not only my my small culture of the Native American community, but my other culture of the people of the United States. I only see the one direction at this point is that you have to, fight the fire with the fire. What is it that screwed us? Well, money and politics. How are we going to try and change that? First, take the money out of politics. That's one direction that I see us going, and trying to change things.
Do you think, Archie, that money will ever leave politics? I think it's intertwined.
At this point, I have to say no. But the only hope that we have is to do that, or else what's the alternative? Either there's only two alternatives: fuck it, anarchy, go to war, or comply. What are the alternatives? Or you just keep trudging and trying to chip away at that wall and change it, because it's not going to be easy to get some type of amendment to change all of the laws that are in place that make lobbying powers exist. It's going to be very, very difficult. You don't just make constitutional amendments to things. That takes a lot of compliance with the whole rest of the country in order to get things like that done. Virtually impossible, but not impossible. So I just say that, like Whale says, people have to get educated. They have to understand what their government is all about and what it's made of and how it functions, because it is not they. It is not just a they, some weird entity. We always make it this mystical thing that's like trying to control us. It's not. It's very, very simple. It's people with a lot of money that want more money and more power, and they're using that to push you down. And they're using that for their interest and not yours, And the more customers they can make, the more of your money they can get, the more power they have over you. Like, for instance, the prison industrial complex. We didn't have private prisons before. Now we have private prisons, for-profit prisons, that have actually been caught employing judges who were putting people into those prisons. They were caught employing judges who were putting people into those prisons. That's the kind of shit that we are dealing with in this country. They are creating criminals so that they can make profit.
Yep.
And people don't even understand that that's happening right underneath their noses. California is one of the largest prison industrial complexes on the planet. And
but yet you guys can't take care of your fucking forests. God damn you guys, the smoke that we're dealing with on this side because of your
and then
fucking
we've got
forests.
weirdo freaking prepper guys like KNTX that want to think that we have to go clean forests in order to stop forest fires.
You let logging industry and
oh
you let
my
cattle
God.
grazing take care of that shit, because if not, you guys get the forest
God.
fires.
Jeez, he is just freaking
you motherfuckers on the coast don't have to deal with because the wind blows this direction.
Some power struggle.
Here.
You are just
even
insane.
on the Discourse Syndicate.
So anyway.
Whale's point is you should get information from everyone and see this battle between KNTX and RG3. This is the infighting that happens when you get it from everyone. No, you need one manipulating dictator.
Oh man!
I would like to say something also. Like, from the way I see it, there are maybe two options you have. You have to either play the game and get a big enough player to change the rules, or you can just go somewhere else and don't live in shitty places.
Well, there's shitty places all over the world. I mean, let's just face it. It's not any less shitty, really, all around the world. There's a few places you can go
that's
hide.
That's a good point, but I think some places are less shitty than others.
So a shit sandwich or a greasy shit sandwich, right?
More listeners. Thank you, Mr. Hartman, for your comments. You are
just to let you guys know that human beings living in forests are what has caused this, because they don't do any more of the clearing or fires starting on their own. So it's just the more and more population that gains, the more and more you try to stop fires from happening, and fires aren't supposed to be stopped from happening. They're supposed to happen so that they can burn all the underbrush and stuff. But it doesn't happen because the population's been growing.
there's
moving into the forest
for these trees to survive.
I got a lot to say about that.
Because you're supposed to have fire.
you don't deserve to.
So there's three topic points that were talked about that really resonated with me. One is the Boston Tea Party, and that's kind of the narrative that Wales and separation. And two is Tesla, Nikola Tesla, as an example of a genius that basically donated his patents so that the world could have alternating current. I'll talk about that one in a moment. And number three is this movie from the 1980s called Wall Street. If you listen to part of the rant that Gordon Gekko puts to the controlling board of a paper company.
Greed is good. Greed works.
So it's a great rant. And if you listen to it and you don't just turn your nose up at a capitalist, it really speaks to what we have been talking about. So number one, Boston Tea Party. The idea behind that is you should not have taxation without representation. So you shouldn't take part of your crop and not have the laws enforced in England over you as a colonist of England, right? So that's an idea. And you have to think about the reverse. You can't have taxation without representation, but you won't have representation unless you are taxed. If you are making $15,000 a year and you're protesting on Occupy Wall Street, nobody gives a fuck, honestly, because you don't have enough influence, you don't have enough political clout, you're not part of the tax base, you're not generating new jobs, you're not
no skin in the game.
You're not moving society forward. You're simply becoming socialist. Honestly, I feel bad that my other poor friends are having a rough time of it. I'm not doing anything other than making noise, really. So you have to have, in order to have representation, you have to have taxation. And that's what I'm talking about also is, if you have all of your wealth in crypto and on paper it's worth X and you exit out certain dollars so you can drive a fancy car, you're not part of the tax base. You have a one-time luxury tax because you're driving a $200,000 car. That's it, right? I think my path is what that is what I'm doing is real estate, because it has economic, I employ CPAs, I employ lawyers, I employ staff, maintenance. I'm part of that community and part of that tax base. I'm trying to be smart about it, but that's my method of creating influence inside of government. The same thing. So that's the Boston Tea Party example. The other example is, look at what just fucking happened. Raised $700 million because of maybe you'll get a token that might have zero value, right? Because it's a political statement, the sacrifice narrative. So if a genius comes up with a better economic system, a competitor to an existing monopoly in the smart contract industry, didn't he just donate that to the world? Didn't he just in some ways donate it? Even if you got a sacrifice and you did a political statement and all this kind of narrative, how come that same thing can't happen in the future? A new idea, a new inventor, a new person that says, I want to make political change and say something like Richard has said in the past. Why do we have only one real representative of Republican and one real representative of Democrat, from the dog catcher all the way up to the president? You only have a left or right position that you can choose from. Why don't you have a weighted choice? Why don't you have, if I can't get this guy, let me get the second guy. If I can't get the second guy, let me get the third guy. And then you have more consensus across your community because everybody won. They got some weight in that game, right?
I really like this, guys. I really like this discourse that's literally being had here on the show right now. I think our DJ friend here has something to say.
I just want to say I love you.
He's about to suit and tie us right now. Look at that.
I want to say I love you all. Outro.